Hello. You ready? You're about to leave. I know you are. Hi there. Hi, Amy. No, oh, please. I'm going to do a live stream, and you have got to have a personal life. You can't be here all the time. I forgot to put you in the other room. Hi, Dave. You're going to have to go in the other room. You need some kind of a personal life. I just can't have you over here all the time. No, seriously, walk away. Walk away. Hi. Glad you're here. So much to say. Oh my God. Painted my lizard. She's not going to be on my shoulder for very long. I can tell. We were doing face painting, and she was here too. She got some Caron Dosh. She's a good girl. She's such a good sport, this lizard. She seems to really enjoy the attention. It's non-toxic, so please don't put any hate on me. Hang on a minute. There we go. Yeah, you're not going to stay here, though, are you? Come here. Come here. I love you extra. Here, you go up there. There. Can you see her? There she is. All right. She looks good. Oh, let's see what comes in. So much stuff. Oh my God. All right. Typical beginning adjustments. This is going to be shorter than normal. I know it can't go for 4 hours today. A lot of people. It can't go for 4 hours today because I should have known. Barrett's got to have him out. Got to come out. Ah. Here we go. I just strip at the beginning of these things. These energies are just wild. Oh, there she goes. She's going in the windowsill. Okay. 1 second. Just need to do the last minute adjustments that I never know what's. But okay, so every time, I always say this, but it's always true. I know I'm going to do a live stream. I organize myself because I'm really not as disorganized in like real life as I am when these things start. My nose started running too. God damn it. Just a second. And I'm going to put the fan on. We'll see if that's sufficient. So much stuff is happening. What a pivotal point in history. Oh, this thing just fell off. Let's see. I just got this. I wasn't going to talk about this at all, but I think I'm just going to show you this just because it moved. The hell's it called? I went crystal shopping with my friend Sherry, who I'm going to do a live stream with. I asked her if she would come on. She's a serious crystal expert. She knows everything. And she took me crystal shopping the other day because she felt that she's the one who bought me the singing quartz. And this one as well. This is Elestial Quartz. And this is a complete crystal. I had no intention of talking about this at all. It's an actually complete crystal. It's not broken. It came whole out of the ground that way. And I use it in tandem. Usually most Elestials are smoky, like this one is. And this is also a complete crystal. It's a nice one. I use it all the time. And it's useful for getting high energy, getting high vibrational energies into the physical body, which is why you would use a smoky for that. But when I was at this crystal sale in Saugerties, This woman had a complete crystal for, it was a reasonable price. It wasn't overpriced. A lot of her things were overpriced, but this one was all right. And it's a complete crystal, and it's not a smoky. So this was very interesting. What it told me, because every force evolves a form, and nothing would come into your field if it weren't wasn't informing you about something. And the fact that Cherie picked this one up and handed it to me, and I've known her for a very long time. She's very, very good. And she knows me real well. And whatever she hands me, I take seriously. She's the one who found me like 20 years ago, before I knew I was a twin. I bought at her shop. Actually, Zoya bought it for me. So it was like $475 at the time. And she had this Lemurian. I had no idea I was going to talk about this today. She had this Lemurian twin in her shop. And I walked in the door and I was broke, had no intention of buying anything. I was just there to visit. And this thing called to me from the case. And Cherie is extremely knowledgeable, extremely good. And she's like, no, you have to have this. And she's not a salesperson. It's not like I've known her to give things away just because she knows if this particular crystal is supposed to go to that person and the service is paramount. And so she's like, you have to have this. So we wound up putting it, and I didn't have any money at all. I think Zoya is the one who actually purchased this for me because we knew I needed it. Everyone recognized it, like this one goes to you. So I had no intention of talking any of this, but 20 years later, it turns out I'm a twin flame and have a fairly significant life mission. It was a damn good thing. I've had this thing for 20 years, meditated with it, and I just thought it was a nice crystal. I didn't even know what a twin flame was. So when Cherie hands me something, I pay attention. And I'm going to put this back down because I keep it in a stand. So the other day, she took me crystal shopping. She took me out to brunch first. That was nice. Here's the other one. Here it is. And I don't think she intended to spend this much money, but it's more about the tools than, it's like you need these things to do your work, which is true. And we were there, and she actually, I overheard her explaining to the woman, said she needs these to do her work. She's doing something for her 11 gateway, and she handed me these two things. And I was looking around myself, but I wound up getting the ones she said, is that the one I gave you? I was like, yeah, because she just knows, she gravitates to it, and she passes it on to me. At any rate, she bought me these singing quartz, which I have been using on the altar. I propped them up in a piece of clay on either side. I've been using that for the 11 gateway, and I had been using this smoky Elestial, which I already had. I purchased this myself, and when she handed me this one, I thought, okay, I just knew what it meant. I thought, okay, all of my fractals are back together. The dark portion, because these have been working as a set. I have been using this one to get light into the physical body. And then she gave me this one, which is larger, and it's a complete crystal. And that was the first thing she said. She said, this is a complete crystal. She looked all around. It's not broken anywhere. So it's a little bit like a double terminated that way, you know, how you look for a, and it's also not self-healed, like we really looked at it carefully. Because every quality carries different frequencies. It has different meaning. So you're going to use it for something else. And the fact that this is a clear crystal, she also said, which I would think this too, that when I'm working with this, it's probably going to get clearer over time. It's milky now. You know, it's white. But it told me that the time for drawing, there's a procedure. So on the altar, you can't see it. It's behind me, behind the computer. But I've got the money tree, and then I've got a whole assortment of things that draw draw the energy in a sequence, brings the energy, it runs the energy into forms, and then it brings it into, basically I'm drawing it down to me. So I have this one, I've got the 11 gateway with the singing quartz, and then I've got a whole host of other clusters that represent different groups. And then I've got this one, which is a kind of a coalescing of all the fractals, but it's clear. And then I've got this one that I've been carefully using to bring it down into a physical form and direct it at me. And then this is where I sit. But that, I had no intention of telling you any of that. I'm going to put these back when for when I'm done. What the hell was this called? Wait a minute. We found the most extraordinary thing when we were at this crystal sale. I'm tempted to call it Angel Light, except I know it isn't. It's something and has a U at the end. And it's not an ite crystal. You know how so many of them, it's like something ite? This isn't. This is a U. Damn, I've written down. But it's amazing. It's got an incredibly smooth energy. The energy of this thing, let me know. You know what? I will type it. I had no idea I was going to talk about it, but if it's in my pad, I will look it up. It has a feeling. See the brown parts in it? It's, where are you? There you go. It's got kind of these brown parts that have, like, I know it's not petrified wood, or maybe it is. It feels like petrified wood, but it's also really smooth, and it's called Angel something. And I will tell you that since I've gotten it, it was also overpriced. Like, she was a little grumpy. She's like, that's overpriced. There's no reason you shouldn't be charging $10 for that. It should be $2 or $3 at the most. But we paid $10 for this one, and she took home a couple of pieces too. The feeling is extraordinary, and it's worth it was worth $10 to me because she paid for it. But I think it's worth $10. Well, that's the Elestial, but this is yeah, I don't know. Oh, this thing? This is amazing. So she and I were talking about if any of you have, no, I called it an Elestial. Yeah, there's an Elestial here, an Elestial here. So we were toying with the idea of possibly me selling crystals online where we program with, like, I don't know, we talked about it. We were talking about the possibility of buying crystals in bulk, programming them with a group on a live stream, and then with the collective energy, sending them out in maybe sets of 3, one to keep, one to give, and one to bury at wherever the location is. I don't know, we were talking about with that. When we finally do it, because what you're trying to do is get the collective consciousness into the grid with further participation. So we're shopping for, I don't know. I'm going to have her on and we'll talk about it. I also thought it would be interesting because to have her on to talk about not only because she really does know a ton, man. Not only the different types of crystals, you know, per se, but she's very good at talking about where, like, for example, different varieties of rose quartz vary in energy depending on where they were mined. So Brazilian rose quartz is good for this particular thing, and she told me this the other day. She talked like 3 different varieties of rose quartz, but you would use one for one thing and one for another and one for another, depending on, I mean, yes, they're good for love frequency. So like overall, sure. But if you really want to finesse a recipe, vibrational recipe, talk to her and she's going to know exactly where you would get it from. She's real spiffy that way, knows a ton. Anyway, yeah, I talked to her. I said, would you please come on? She's got an obscene schedule, just ridiculous schedule. Like she has to get up at like 3 in the morning and go to bed at 6 or something. Not exactly, but it's something. It's one of those schedules that, all right. We'll do what we can do, but I would like to have her on because she's fascinating person. Also a really good cook. And she has a parrot too. Okay. So I can't remember what the name of this thing is, but it moved as soon as I started the live stream. So that's that. All right. This has to be a shorter live stream, but there's a shit ton to talk about because holy cow. Where the hell is my other notepad that actually, so, you know, we're all moving up a level in service. It's very important to have, you don't have to nail it down. Elestial with an E. You don't have to, crap. I started to say, have your plan of service ready. On the other hand, what I also want to say on another level, because I'm always talking about these different levels, you don't have to nail it down. It becomes so dicey to talk about because what you need to do is different depending on what strata you're in. So there's like one strata that really needs to fight a lot for their rights right now. They really need to fight a lot. Like, have a freaking backbone, get up, verbalize your opinion, and say no. They absolutely have to do this. There's a strata right above them that has been fighting, and as they step up into their new path of service, what they need to do is stop the fighting immediately, because now they're in, if they continue in the vein of being adversarial or you know, fighting. If they keep doing that with that mindset, they're now stepping up into a creation mode. So you're going to wind up creating more conflict. So when you blame someone, you need to, blaming happens in the lower strata because it has to, because that's where you learn to really have your own power. That's where the purging process goes on. So you can still, you have to absolutely feel everything and express it verbally with no fear at all and totally stand in your authority and really direct that outward when you're in a lower dimension. That's extremely important. But what happens is that soon you start to verbalize that and stand up for yourself, et cetera, as you purge and clear and rise in vibration. First, you're going to stabilize and you're going to be able to hold your own field much clearer and less reactive. And then as you step up, you're going to step up into a creative space. So your mental processes are going to have to do a real sharp turn, because you can't be in blame or mirror mode. There's a point where mirror mode is important. And that's why the strata, you know, like that strata where people discover their twin flames and they go into the twin flame, not the real twin flame dynamic, but like twin flame echo, where you, like a lot of hysterical women think it's a, men too a little bit, or it's a feminine portion of the masculine counterpart usually. But there's like a thin strata that tends to get really annoying. They get very, they foam at the mouth for like the romantic aspect of it with no regard for the fact that it's an actual mission. And you're probably not a twin flame if you're doing that. If you're fervent over the mission and you're fervent over the mission, regardless of whether your twin shows or not, the two of you could be separated, and you're both of you, if you're really twin flames, you're both going to be purging and on mission already, because you couldn't do anything else, because you're made that way. So I started to say, have your plan for mission service ready, but also one of those divine paradox, man. You got to be open to adjustment. And now that we're moving up in strata, one of the things that's happening is things move. Timelines are shifting and shifting and shifting really rapidly. It's like this Rolodex. And in higher strata, everything moves faster, so you must absolutely be open to adjustment. Not once, not twice. It's just going to go blah, 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 because we're purging a lot of stuff. We're rapidly going to the highest timelines. If you're somebody who is feeling and stabilizing, if you're a large-scale empath, or even if you're whatever, if you're an empath altogether, you're stepping up into service is going to mean stabilizing a field for people, a larger and larger group of people, a network. So if it doesn't exactly work this way, really, but for the sake of illustrating it, if you've got a flat timeline, let's say this is 3 and it's stable, and if you go up, the first, when you're responsible for just yourself, it's only you and your own toroidal field, and that happens on 3 when you're only basically responsible for yourself. Right after that, you're going to be responsible for you and your own family. Me and mine. I take care of me and mine. And you might be affected by, like the emotions of the people in your family, but because of the belief system and your energy stream, as it's running, you're not really picking up on people unless you meet them and, they affect you that way. After a while, it becomes you and your tribe, and you might pick up on the emotions of people that you know. But the higher up, if that's the timeline, the higher up you go, it goes out equally. So you're going to wind up affecting more and more and more and more, feeling and changing. It's like your own radiance. You wind up picking up a larger and larger group of people. So at that point, you're feeling things from, not only miles around you, but you could be feeling things for the collective across the country, and you could be feeling things from people in China, or, say they had a natural disaster in Malaysia, and I felt all of that. That absolutely happens. So one of the things you learn to do is, because your channel, this is going to affect manifesting big time, and it's going to affect the financial system, and this is why it affects the global financial network. Your responsibility as you go up in vibration, your responsibility really increases. You have a far larger ability to serve humanity the higher your vibration goes. The more of with an increase in power comes increased responsibility, because you're responsible for stabilizing more. Your interior channel broadens. You become a much, much bigger tube, basically. So this is how it affects mass consciousness. It affects the financial system big time. I've said that in the 3rd dimension, everything is reduced. You're reduced to the power of a single person, responsible for just yourself. Stabilizing, you learn to stabilize your own emotions and be responsible for only you. And only after you're able to really get a handle on your own self without suppression. You have to be able to stand up for yourself, to be able to handle conflict without being a people pleaser. I was going to talk about this later in the stream, but sometimes people think that they're capable of handling peace, or they are a very peaceful person, but they can only do it in a peaceful place. There are a lot of people who avoid conflict to such a degree that the way they make peace is to the way they make peace is to avoid conflict by being a people pleaser and just giving, like deferring to the dominant force. And we can't have that either. You're really not of any particular use to the collective if you're deferring to an external source that is going to take you away from your authenticity. What we need really are more people who can face conflict directly with no avoidance whatsoever and say, this is what I do, and I'm okay with you being in opposition to me. It's not going to affect me one way or another. I'm going to allow you to do even if it's in direct opposition, I have the capacity to meet you exactly where you are, have you not affect me at all. I'm going to claim my authenticity and just be. And I'm in that regard, you're no longer a threat to me. You're not a threat to me at all. I'm just going to carry my own peace with me wherever I go. At that point, when you have that ability, you become useful as an actual light worker that can handle conflict, because you're not deferring and keeping the peace by placating the asshole. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to say, no, we're not doing that. I won't allow that to happen. That's cruelty. The answer's no. And at that point, you don't have to go and blast in. So you're really, there's a way to bring peace to a conflict without going into conflict yourself. This is really what we need to do. We need more people to be able to do that and talk about it too. If you're so peaceful, there's some people who believe that they like peace only because they're terrified of conflict. If you're terrified of the opposition, or you're fearful that, and somebody might get upset. I don't want that person to get upset, so therefore I'm just going to placate them, and just say, sure, honey, whatever you want, or whatever. You wind up not standing up for your rights, which is an important thing to do. You're going to need to do that. In fact, it's essential to get up through the 11 gateway, to not defer to a force, and that's it, and also not judge it, because there are a lot of forces. You have to meet a force if you're trying to bring a force back to center. You don't have to be aggressive. You just have to be immovable. Calmly immovable, and say, I can't meet you on that point. I'm going to do this thing. You can do whatever you want, but you won't get past this. And you just hold yourself stable, like a brick wall. Sometimes that's really useful. It can also be really freaking irritating if you're dealing with somebody and you want them to move. But you need to have a toolkit that includes everything. So I would never say, never be intransigent. Sometimes you need to be absolutely, have that brick wall as a skill set, and you will not move. You will not budge me on this point. You need to have that. You also need to have infinite flexibility, because that's a skill set too. That's where, like, the masculine and the feminine, you need both. You need the opposites in your toolkit. It really helps too if you have not just polarities, but extremes. Like the great light warriors will have these extremes, be able to go into extreme darkness because their own light is so extreme itself. And you could flip it around. Like, I can bring extreme dark. I have that in my toolkit. I can have that. That's not what I was going to talk about either. I was going to talk about the channel broadening and wealth. One of the things, oh my God. Because I'm watching certain things happen, and I'm cringing. And one of the reasons that in my work and everyone else, all the rest of us who do this, we're dialing up and down in dimension, all of these tiny little micro layers that need to be adjusted, and it's like this enormous Rolodex, and we're just going from level to level to level. And the reason we seem so insane is because we're just incredibly busy. Like, I'm working on about 15 different levels right now, and there's so much work that needs to get done to assist each level to get up to the next level. And so, oh my gosh, the levels up there are so eager and so ready and so exhausted and depleted. Like, what the fuck is taking them so long? And the ones at the bottom, like, I don't know why. I'm watching not just the sleepers, but even, I mean, there's so many levels to this thing, and you want to be able to just deliver certain. It's not that I don't know what needs to be done. I do know what needs to be done. It's a matter of getting the people in there. I need to get that frequency in there, and I could do it if I got a little bit of cooperation for that, but I cannot do that and be pulled off. I need to stay on my task. I really do. So I was going to talk so we're having in the collective, we're having because you know that my primary job, my overarching job is dealing with mass migrations, the exodus of the planet, which involves the planet. It's everyone. It's like I'm trying to get them all to move together. And there are some that are just hysterical with sure, of course. And in 4, that's where all of this motion is happening, and the dark and the light are basically, we already have victory up here, but there are places down at the bottom, like, wait, boy, we have not even approached the undoing. I shouldn't say that, because we have. It just hasn't reached them yet. They don't know it. That's the thing. They don't know it. It's already happened. They just don't know it's happened. So it's a matter of waking them up and having them take responsibility, but they keep recreating the same thing. So there are certain things that are going to hit them.
I just need to grab 2 things.
Oh, check out your lizard. Check out my lizard. You won't even recognize her. She's on the windowsill. Check her out. Oh, she's beautiful. I'm on a live stream right now.
I had to get my water before I go.
Okay. I'm sorry. What time do I pick you up?
8 o'clock. Hutton Park.
5:40. Okay, we're good. Isn't she beautiful?
She's all different colors.
I know. We painted her. That's calico.
Oh, I need my flag.
Oh, it's in the closet. So there's a geometry. There's a geometry to the geometry of rescue. Oy. There's a geometry to rescue. And I know that there are going to be people who say, we don't need to be rescued. Everyone, you're your own savior. There are no more savior figures. That's true. That's true, but there has been there's been a geometry to the rescue operation. Yes, there has been, because and that's one of the things I'm going to have to write a book about. One of the problems that we're having is that of financially supporting the levels as they go up, because and we're right at the precipice. I know I keep saying these two systems are about to merge, and yes, they are, and it's approaching, and there's going to be a large lump sum of money that jumpstarts I just know it. I know it because I built it. We have a large lump sum of money that's in the field, and it needs an avenue. I've been through this before, where I make a large lump sum of money, and because of the place where I am in the construct that is being dismantled but is not completely gone, I need it to come from someone else. It can't land to me it cannot come to me directly. It needs an avenue. And twice before, more than that, I have generated this thing, this field, and brought it into form and directed it to a partner who then thought it was going to come to them anyway. They were like, okay, you have this and I'll take the rest of it. I'll take the bulk. You have this tic-tac. I'll take the feast. So that's why lately, in the third dimension, the people whose consciousness is there, and I'm really not, I know I'm sounding very judgy, but I'm really not, I don't intend to sound judgy. It's a very frustrating problem because of the geometry. What we're trying to do is break into the consciousness of the tip of the triangle where it is the most dense and the most compressed. So if you think about the triangle that's coming down, at the tip of the triangle is the single being, the individual in the third dimension on the timeline, with that belief system that keeps going, where this is me and mine. This is me and mine. I worked for it. I did it. This is mine. And the whole goal in that mentality is to get as much as you can, because you believe that it's safety. You believe that it represents your security. And so you try to hoard as much as possible. You think that it's your retirement, usually, or it's hooked into some sort of a system because you're thinking about your future, which is also anchored on the timeline, and you want to be safe, so it's fear-based, timeline-based. You've got to get out of this strata. But they don't know that because they think that's their safety. So they get very resentful if you try to take that away from them. They get fearful, and they also get pissed if you yank it or if you take it. And they get very resentful if you try to take it. They don't recognize that you did anything to get it to go to them, largely, well, for the reason, not largely, it's for this reason. You're not aware of anything that's above your own, like horizon line, or above your own eyesight. You see things from the level of your own awareness and everything beneath you. That's why one of the reasons why so many people think they're at the very, very top. Because from everyone's perspective, they basically are at the top. Because you can see on the stairway, you're allowed to see everything from your level and down, all the grades beneath you, basically. So the people in the third dimension are not aware that the people in the fifth dimension are doing anything for them, even though we usually are doing way more for them than they are doing for us, because it's this geometry where they're down here and they're doing this, they're bustling and bustling and going to work and going to work and going to work and going to work, and they get into this trap of a lot of masculine energy That's doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. Gotta go to work, gotta go to work, gotta go to work. And they get very distracted and they're not thinking about God. And this is one of the reasons it's a trap. Because not enough people meditate, not enough people slow down to receive that. And even if they do, there have been on that level, there's so much conditioning designed to keep you there. And that's why, yes, there was a rescue operation designed to rescue Earth, because there's no way they were going to get out. The geometry is such that they don't know that we're doing anything. So you've heard, and we're above them, so they can't see us. They're not, they don't, a lot of them don't even see 4. And 4 is where, you see ghosts and spirits and auras, and you begin to see, it's like the middle ground where you see things that are semi-solid. And a lot of people in 3 think it's really advanced to see in 4, but they're not, so you might go to someone with a specialty skill and say, oh, that person's in see spirits, like they're a medium. But really what they're doing is reaching up into 4. Not exclusively. Obviously, there are some people who are also in physical bodies who are doing very, very advanced work. I'm not talking about them. I'm basically talking just about the people who are still kind of locked in the third dimensional mindset. Because for a long time, the 5th dimension and higher was harder to access. Relatively very few people did it for a long time. And so it would be considered advanced to go to someone, for like a seance or use a Ouija board or tarot cards or something where you'd reach up into, the 4th dimension and get a hitchhiker. Somebody wanted to come through, and it's hit or miss because it's equal amounts dark and light in the 4th dimension also. And it only becomes lighter when you go into the 5th. But you've heard that phrase, I think it was Joseph Campbell who said it, I think. Take 1 step toward the gods, they take 10 toward you. That ratio is basically true. We do way more for those in 3 than they do back. They're not. So the goal to get this group at the base of the inverted triangle, to get them to rise, number one, they don't want to do it because they're holding on to their stuff because they believe that it's security. It's not. It's actually weighing them down, but they don't know that yet. And since they don't trust, and since they're physically oriented and they don't yet see a way to go, it makes them worried. They think there is no place to go. And so they get scared. And so they clutch onto their stuff more. So they get angrier at people who try to take it from them. So that's why it's very dicey to try to get them to a place of even exchange, which is where they need to be to get through the 11 gateway. What they really need to do, this is why if you're one of the people who, like me, like a lot of people, a lot of us who went first, I think David Mills made a comment about this the other day. He's like, you made me feel better about accepting my family's financial aid. He said, I was feeling guilty for taking donations from my family. But actually that's what you're helping them. What you don't realize, or they certainly don't realize it. Most of them get, resentful, is that whoever is the receiver is your partner in flow. And you need to view it like that. Number one, because you need to let go of the resentment. Let go of the anger that you have to pay somebody's bills or you have to go to someone's rescue again. If you're holding on to density, the person who's able to be fearless, anytime you operate in an exchange with another person, it's a dual, it's a partnership of two. And if you enter into this exchange, the energy is running in both directions. So if I'm on the leading edge, let's say, and I'm living in 0 point, I have cultivated over time the ability to be fearless. So when I'm taking, a handout from someone who is fearful about losing money, it is an even exchange because I'm taking density. It's linking us together. And some of my fearlessness is going into the place that they just, they gave me density and I gave them space, which they need. They don't know it yet. They don't know it but light is data. Space is data. When we go through the gateway en masse, like there are a lot of people who go up and down now, but in order to change the system for the entire society, which is really what needs to happen, and there are so many, I'm thinking a lot of people here on Facebook who are just foaming at the mouth for, the RV and the quantum, the reset, financial reset. Yes, it's coming. The network of space needs to be prepared to handle not only the amount of money that's going to come flooding in, but also the amount of fear. Because if we're connecting to the monetary system and the lower system is going to lose their money, they don't know it's to their benefit. They don't know how it works yet. They don't know the way telepathy works yet. They don't know the way connectivity works yet. They don't know how it works. So they're scared shitless. They don't want it to happen. They're in huge resistance. So this is one of the reasons why the first thing we have to do is stabilize ourselves and be able to get really fearless while walking in 0 point. And when you receive, you need to be 100% shameless about it. You're doing a job too. Very often we're doing the harder of the job. The harder side of the job is the one that breaks into the new terrain first. That's the harder one. You're going to meet the most resistance and you're going to get a lot of people fighting against you. So you need to be fearless that way. When these two systems come together, not only, so for those of you who have been saying, when's the money coming? When's the money coming? When's the money coming? The money's coming. Yeah, it is. In a chunk. However, it's not going to hit everyone immediately. There's a system to it. You're going to get it to the degree that you have made space for it. And you also have to be fearless. So what's going to come with that? Your responsibility, it's not just about you receiving money. Like, oh, hooray, my payday's here. Is it that? Yes, but that's not all it is. Because when you step up, you're also going to be getting, you're stepping up a level of spiritual maturity. You have a further job. You need to hold the hands of the children, and you're going to be leading them and taking on a lot of their fear with a lot of their, when a lot of their money suddenly departs, there's going to be a lot of fear there because they don't know that it's safe. You're the one who has to provide the safety so that they're just beginning the transmutation process. Oh, one thing about transmutation, I realized when I listened to the previous live stream, there was a point where I was talking about transmuting darkness, and the way I said it, I made it seem like the darkness was changing, but that's really not entirely what's happening, is it? What's really happening is that we ourselves are being changed into light. So it's not transmuting, because it's never about changing anything external. Sometimes we talk about it that way, because otherwise the words get really tangled. If everything is everything and nothing is nothing, sometimes you have to talk about it in some sort of a way where there is differentiation, where, you know, if you wanted to go up to all is one and everything is nothing, you could do that too, but then you've got no speech. So it just becomes dicey. Where and when are interchangeable. Today I landed, and seriously, today was so funny this morning. I'm off on a little tangent, but don't be surprised if in these times of changing and changing and changing, faster and faster and faster, we need that to happen. That's because there's so much rotation, and those of us who are doing this, this processing work on behalf of our brethren who are terrified, we're going through these micro changes of emotions. Don't expect anything to be stable anymore. The other day I wrote something to someone, and they said, do you mind if I show your text to a therapist? I was like, sure. But if you are looking for validation, if you go to a standard therapist and you say, is this normal? What do you think of this person? You're taking it to a third dimensional trained person. Of course, whatever they're going to say, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to see what's above their head and out of their eyesight. So sure, you can do whatever the hell you want. All you're doing is reinforcing your own viewpoint. I'm not actually judging that person either, but it's just funny. You can the old rules for almost everything no longer apply. Really, they no longer apply. The banking system is leaving. The educational system is leaving. The pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry are leaving. You can't go for something for a test that means one thing and you want to stable it down and you made a commitment. Why can't you keep it and just decide already? Nail it down. All of that is gone. The political structure is changing. The voting system doesn't even matter. You already voted with your vibrational frequency. It takes me back to the toroidal field. It's 559. I just looked at the clock. So there are these micro changes. So in the purging process, what's really needed now, we need more. If you're listening to this and you're into this material, you're probably already experiencing it. You can expect, anticipate micro changes of emotion. You're not going crazy. You're helping the planet. We're all doing it. There's a whole group of us. It's so, I've got I have about 8 different topics and only 2 hours. Also, energy is really running through my hands right now. So someone out there, possibly all of you, and energy runs through my palms all the time, but I know that it's really running when the back of my hands get really, really hot, almost scalding. It feels like I'm running them under, very, very hot water right now. So there's a transmission going out to all of you. We need more and more and more people to pick up the filtering process, because as much as we've cleared, and we've cleared a lot, we've really cleared a lot, there's a massive, large chunk that's going to flip. And there are so many people that, when you hang out with even a large group of people, they're still your group of people. And the other day, sometimes you forget, well, I do sometimes, that not everybody knows this stuff. And I know that not everybody knows all that stuff, but I forget that there are people that don't even, oh my God, they just don't even know the most elemental, basic, beginner's version of this stuff, and they're gonna get clobbered. The other day, because they're still thinking this stuff is woo-woo. Oh my goodness. The other day I texted somebody, I didn't go out of my way to text 1111. I was texting somebody and I texted 1111. I was texting a distant family member, and I texted 1111 because it was 1111. So I was like, oh, 11. So I texted it, and she texted me back a whole bunch of question marks. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't mind saying it. It's not like so I said, oh, now that she's asked the question, I can deliver an answer. But it surprised me because I thought that everybody knew that, at least. So I'm repeatedly, very often, confronted or surprised afresh by someone. Oh my gosh, you don't know about that. How is it that how do you function there? How do you work without, I don't know. But that's funny because they think that I'm nuts and they don't know how I function at all. Like without a bank account. What do you mean you have no what do you mean you have no savings account? You don't even have a bank account? You're irresponsible. So these two systems don't go together. So those of us who are doing in the third dimension, the geometry has been that of separation, and it's been also the Star of David. The energetic construct of the Joan of Arc lifetime was the Star of David. So and I'm going to have to talk about the way that worked, because we're trying to dismantle it, but oh wow, it went backwards and it got worse. And so we're trying to dismantle it by taking it apart and rebalancing when it didn't go the way it was supposed to go. Like I used the example, we treated an oil spill and it was like treating an oil spill with another oil spill. We meant to clean it up, but it went the wrong direction, so it amplified instead. And now getting back from that, we were trying to come down on the Joan of Arc lifetime within a construct with two people on each point controlling a certain population or balancing for a specific population. And as they balanced, in theory, the theory was, it would expand empathy because you're making soup. It's like everybody gets their populations and we mix them all. So, and we amp up the rotation, like put it in a blender in the center. And that way, all of the points on the triangle with carrying the experience of their population, they're connected to all of their people. What you're trying to do is amplify the development by getting more compassion into the population, by having them all share the experience or partake of the experience of the other. That was like you think, okay, that'll work. That should work. Let's test it. What are we going to lose? They're all going to die anyway. No way in hell they're going to make it through this window unless we do something. So here's this contraption, and we're going to see if this works. I'm writing a whole book about that thing, or I will be. I got a lot to say about it. I can tell you the way it works. But it was a good theory. So then, coming back down, what we're trying to do is put two individuals to rebalance it, on the point of the Merkaba. There are two individuals, and within the small, they take a portion of the soup and they're trying to rebalance that, kind of topic by topic. So you take a certain energy stream, let's say, for example, it's, parent-child, that dynamic needs to be balanced so that the children are not just being taught by the adult, because that needs to be balanced. The parents need to learn from the children as well so that they can get new information and not constantly just be referring to the past to go forward, because then you're going to turn, we're trying to undo the trapness of Earth that constantly refers backwards and keeps you looking backwards so that you're just in a constant eddy. The other imbalance is the masculine-feminine balance needs to be, we needed to redo that. We needed to redo the balance of the financial system, which is just, has been transactional. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer because, and we had to rebalance that. The problem that we had is that we started out with a 3-to-1 ratio thinking. And also, so pay attention, if you're following this, pay attention to anywhere you see a 3-to-1 ratio. You remember I was talking about the clock, the lovers, the point of balance is the 6 at the base of the clock. And then straight up from that is going to take you to the 12. And then up from that is actually 13. There's a 3-to-1 ratio. And that's like the new chakra. And you're trying to kind of reach that above your crown chakra. And then you're going to get expanded awareness. We're trying to get everyone up to that. But pay attention to the 3-to-1 ratio, which is in a lot. A lot has been written about that. One of the things about the 3-to-1 ratio, we used it on each point of 2 so that there wouldn't be so much to undo. But what wound up happening instead is it went backwards. And now we have the extreme we went into the extreme of imbalance instead, where one person has 4 and one person has nothing. And then 4, it locks in, things lock in at 4 because it's for structure. It's a much harder thing to get undone because it's not moving. At least with the 3-to-1 ratio, you've got 3 that is a catalyst for change, that number, so it allows for movement. And then 1 is for new beginnings and thought. So again, it allows for a new beginning or an impulse forward. So that ratio you can work with. Pay attention to wherever you see it. I wasn't going to talk about this either, but I don't watch like a lot of television, and I just don't. But I pay attention to the offerings on Netflix and things that affect mass consciousness. I don't usually go watch a lot of series, but I pay attention to the types of things that are being offered. Every once in a while, I will watch 1 or 2 episodes of something to get a feel for the energy that's there, just so I know where it is. It's interesting to me that, because I'm paying attention to the way the balance of power for the feminine is returning. And I don't know what the name of it was a film about Secretariat. I don't know if it's called Secretariat or if it's called something else, but it's a movie on Netflix, Secretariat. I paid attention to that because I get, number one, I have a horsey background, and Secretariat has been an analogy that I've been using for a really long time about the Joan of Arc lifetime. How the Dauphin was lifted up. He was like, I forget what he was. He was like 11th in line for the throne. He was the youngest child or something. Yeah, something like the 11th child. We chose him when the king died. We chose him because he was the least educated, because no one thought he was going to live. It was a time of such programming, indoctrination about, you're in line for the throne, so you're taught how to do XYZ in the royal lineage. And because he was so young, it's terrible. He was considered kind of disposable. They just had him, and nobody expected. But then all the other brothers died, or all the rest of the lineage died, and he was the only one who was left. But he was actually, when the king died, it was tragic for our construct, because we had very much wanted him to be there. But we went with a plan B. You adjust things because there was so much planning that went into it. We didn't want to call it a total loss, and we went to put him on the throne because he had asked he had genuinely asked. He was spiritual baby. There was spiritual infancy there, but there was, he was a lot less indoctrinated, so we had an in. There was space, and he was a lot more malleable. And plus, he was terrified, and he really needed help. There was a genuine call for help, so I'm not trying to knock him at all. It turned out he also had a lot of malice, and that wasn't good. And so things went downhill from there. It wound up setting out a locking in a pattern of victimization. And now we're trying to come back from that. And that's what really sucks, because I used the Secretariat analogy at one point regarding him, because not just him, but the whole situation, that you take somebody who had no idea what they were doing. And remember how I was talking about somebody who was, when they were, those who are so scared to go forward into the new realm, you don't leave them comfortless. You give them somebody of equal caliber who can help them. For example, the reason in the third dimension, the strategy is take one step toward the gods. We're going to take 10 steps toward you, because that, and by the way, that makes an 11, doesn't it? Because that's how much help you need. You actually need that much help when you're down there. And I was feeling, honestly, I really was. I was feeling quite snarky about it one day, and I had made it hopeless and really annoyed at the whole situation one day. And I was thinking about the Joan of Arc lifetime, and I kind of made an offhand remark where I said, you were basically given Secretariat. You were given an open track, and you were given Secretariat, and you still managed to lose the race. I was quite pissed. But not only that, then it happened again in this lifetime, where it took that like 600 years worth of time. All lifetimes are concurrent, but about 600, a lot of strategizing to get us to another opening where we could try the same thing again. You get the test is going to come up again until you solve it. So once again, the two of us showed up. We, 15, 16 years of marriage, and says like, okay, now I'm gonna leave, and I'm just gonna go move a mile up the road, and and manage to take it backwards again. How the hell did we manage to take it from a place of the 3-to-1 ratio? Like we went from the 4 to 0 back to 3-to-1, and thinking, okay, it's time for the next rotation. We're going to get it. And then instead of it going forward, it went back into the 4-0 ratio again, and locked in again. Like, holy crap. How did you manage to lose the race on Secretariat twice? Anyway, so the idea of Secretariat has been in my consciousness quite a bit, and Secretariat is on Netflix, and I watched it. Oh, this is a long story, long diversion. Secretariat's on Netflix, and I watched it. Secretariat's bar name was Big Red. So he was owned by a woman. The reason I'm watching this is because it was very unusual for a woman to be a business owner. I'm looking for things that relate to the advancement of women who have a certain distance to make up to cross the finish line by the end of the window. So I thought, Secretariat. I watched the movie. He was owned by a woman who not only owned him, but she owned that entire stable. It's a very, very famous stable. Secretariat won by 31 lengths. 31. So there's a 3-to-1 ratio. He was called Big Red. He was owned by a woman, and it's a race. So I'm looking at, I just pay attention, because every force evolves a form, everything, and it's affecting mass consciousness. Like I'm so aware that none of this shit is random. And we go up to people who do this kind of work, who are, it's not the people in the third dimension, like the studio executives and the film directors, and they're responding to the energies that are coming down. Because you're in the third dimension, everything is reduced to a mere response. You can only respond to things. That's to prevent spiritual babies from having any creative power. You cannot let them have that, because they're going to kill themselves, blow each other. They have no idea what the fuck they're doing. You can't let them have any actual creative power. So on one hand, the fact that a lot of these things have been taken away from the populace, not entirely a bad thing. And for those people who are, very accusation of the I was going to say the cabal sucks. But like the archons and the archangels, like they manipulate us yeah, we do, because you have to carefully manage the energy streams so that you don't cause an absolute calamity, because you can't allow, they don't even know so many people in the third dimension don't even know how to manage their own reactions. So what you wind up getting are these huge flinch responses, which wind up en masse going into the toroidal field at large, because for a time there were not enough people in the higher strata who were stabilizing it. So this is one of the reasons why, like the whole idea of disclosure, for those in the disclosure community who have been clamoring and just angry, disclosure now, give us disclosure now, we can handle the truth, That thing alone says that you are not ready for disclosure, because you don't know the dynamics at play, do you? If you say, give us the truth because we can handle it, you're already thinking about you and yours in the disclosure community. You're not thinking about all of your brethren behind you who have no idea this stuff exists and are going to be terrified. You have no idea about how a sudden wave of fear is going to affect you, particularly when you're already in an angry state of blame. And if you can't calm yourself down, you're stewed in the water, you're not ready for the information. And that's why so much of it has been withheld. I'm not actually yelling. I'm yelling. But I'm not actually yelling at any of you. I just get really emphatic because it's a complex dynamic. And we need peace to be brought to the table. So therefore, we need more people who can enter a genuine conflict, face a conflict, face something that scares you, and bring peace and stability without retreating from a conflict and being a people pleaser. We can't have that either. So, in the third dimension, 3 and 4, that's really a troublesome stream bed. So, and meanwhile, those of us who have been unplugged from the support system, we're not getting any, we're still in body. We're not completely embodied. A lot of us are out of our body. At certain strata, there are a lot of us, like I'm not in my body at all. Very little. Hi. But I still have to eat. And I still require certain physical things that do, not just me, like it would be different if it was just me, like that's the whole thing. If it were just me, it would be different. But I also have a daughter. I have not been getting, I only get $72 a week child support. So I'm not complaining, cancel. I was going to say this though. I was going to say this, yes. So I call on all of our higher selves, all timelines and dimensions and realities, anything that's being created. Cancel, clear, and delete any and all of negative effects that may come from anything that I may be talking about. Because for the purposes of this discussion, I want to be able to speak freely to people in a wide variety of levels, and I'm calling on all of the benevolence of the universe to delete, cancel, clear, and delete any and all effects, negative effects that may come from anything I say. And I'm asking this cancellation to go into all of the energy streams in perpetuity, so that we can speak freely about this. I'm just asking for any and all angelic support. Support from all levels, but benevolent levels, to help reduce, clear, and cancel anything negative, any and all fear responses, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I want to be able to speak about it freely. Another one of the issues that we're having is that, and one of the reasons that we have to go, those of us who are doing this work, we have to go up and down, dial up and down in dimensions or levels like a Rolodex. So even if you're going from 3 to 5, 3 to 5, 3 to 5, one of the reasons this is very useful, you need that skill. You don't want to be stapled down, or like there's a certain population that we need to anchor into 5. And the people who are anchoring things into 5 are those who have like Jen McCarty has that job where it's like all focused on all 5 all the time, pure, 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 pure. Nothing that's not purely that. And thank God she's doing that job, because we need that strata anchored. So like on her group, the event is happening. They're scrupulous with hygiene, and they need to be. Like there's no swearing, there's all sorts of things that have to be, that's like, has to be a pure space. I really appreciate that. But we can't all be there yet. We need to have a water wheel. There is a water wheel in the process. And those of us who have different jobs are going up into 5 or up into like 12 and down into 3 and picking up negativity and all. So each dimension isn't just one thing either, as you probably know, where every single dimension has multiple strata. Like I had used the term baklava. It's like that. All of these levels. So as you dial up and as you clear, it's like the toroidal field is constantly moving, and you're picking up on your own personal toroidal field is merging with others, and it's all rotating, and you're all in various stages of empathy and clearing for other people who may not have those abilities that you have. So we need you to go through all these minute changes. So like you're laughing for 15 seconds and then you go into sobbing, and then you think you're going crazy and then you're getting hot flashes and you're not going into menopause, but like suddenly you feel like you have to vomit, and that's because you passed somebody who's angry or something. There are all of these minute shifts. Drink a lot of water. Take a lot of salt baths. I take at least one a day. When I was purging, the initial Joan purge that went on for like, oh my God, the first 3 years of that, I was 4. It was so heavy. And I was taking 3 salt baths a day with a pyramid on my head and drinking all this water. I was doing tens of thousands of Ho'oponoponos. That's not an exaggeration at all. I was just pacing constantly and praying, lighting candle. I mean, that was like my whole existence, because the clearing, the purging work was that severe. So more and more and more people are doing it now. And as more people begin to move, we're going to start, there are more of us clearing, but it's like you got to go back to this strata that as we go up, more people are moving faster and faster and faster. It's important. It's essential. Do not try to get it to go back to normal. I'm seeing that in a lot of people where they're trying to put things back the way they were. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. Don't do that. Try to put the political system back. Oh, we wish for the days when it seemed to be working well, but actually what we needed, as horrible as it is, I'm not saying it's pleasant, I'm not saying we found good stuff, but the asphalt needed that locked down thing, a lot of toxicity was beneath it. And not only that, anyone who stays there is automatically going to die when you go out. If you remain in a level that's that dense, it's automatic perishing. There's no way in hell you're going to live if you're that dense and you go up into these higher energies, and we cannot stop where our solar system is in the galaxy. We're going through, we have been in this process, but you can't go back to a place of density. So what your best and your only choice at this point, drop your attachment to your material stuff. And here's the thing. A lot of people who still, and I'm not saying you're actually going to be more secure. That's the thing. And much better off, like for real. But there's going to be, if you're too attached to your stuff and the ideas that you're, including your mindset, that you have to have certain things to secure your future, you got to get rid of that right now. The idea that you have to have a major so that you're going to have a, so that you can graduate college, so you can have this career, so you can have X, Y, this amount of money. Some of those may continue, but a lot of them are going to shift, and you'd be really surprised how many things that you think are non-negotiable, they're not going anywhere, they're going to definitely go someplace. The entire political system is changing. There's no need to vote at all. I know a lot of people are going to get really pissed at me if I say that, but I don't care. It's still true. If you, here's the thing. There's, time's at 6:30. Right now, there's I should rephrase that. There's if you picture a scale, like the scales of justice, yes, for the time being, we're moving from a third dimensional system to a fifth dimensional system. With your energy stream, you have a certain amount of energy that's yours. The amount of energy that you expend is basically, well, we can quantify it for the purposes of discussion by saying it's the area of your toroidal field. Like said, like some people are only reduced to being responsible for just themselves, so their tube is going to be relatively small. Their toroidal field is going to be basically just themselves if you're reduced to just one. As you become responsible and more aware and more compassionate, more caring, responsible for others, you'll have a family. You'll be taking care of you and yours. So your toroidal field will be somewhat broader. But if you're still just taking care of you and your family, you're still not running all that much energy through you, because it doesn't need to sustain that many people. When you go, your level of responsibility, as it goes up, as it goes out, as you become more responsible for more and more people, more and more of your brethren, you need more energy and a greater capacity to do that. Therefore, your own channel, your own, the interior of your toroidal field is going to be able to carry more energy. You're going to bring more down through you. So you're going to be transmuting more of it. And then the higher up you go in dimension, your toroidal field is going to go out in equal measure. So you're going to be responsible for more and more people with your ability to stabilize yourself. It's going to do us no good whatsoever if you can't hold your shit together when the population is going crazy. You have to be able to remain fearless when you're surrounded by people who are terrified. Otherwise, if you get terrified, you're gonna reduce, because that's one of the safety mechanisms that's in place. Your vibration, if you think about the geometry, your vibration is you're gonna go down in dimension. Your vibration is going to go way down if you suddenly get very scared. And so your toroidal field comes back in. If that happened, your toroidal field would come back in, and you would be responsible for just yourself, because you have to get your shit back together. And then as you come out of fear, you begin to become aware of your surroundings. There's a mechanism to it. We really need all hands on deck. We need as many people as possible to really develop a meditation practice and start caring for others much more actively, because everyone has to go up a level in service. You have to. And if you don't, there are definitely going to be consequences. So what I started to say was when the energy comes through you, here's the thing. I don't think I've said this before, and every time I do a live stream, I think to myself, damn, I wanted to mention that. This is why voting isn't going to matter. Every single being has an individual recipe that carries their vibrational signature. It's not repeated anywhere else. It is only yours. All of the energy that comes through you picks up your signature. So you already voted. So what happens is you bring the energy down through what a toroidal field is. It looks like a gigantic donut, and it's rotating like this all the time. So it's out, let's say it's out, it extends way out into the world, and you're picking up all of the feelings, the sensations, the ideas, the collective consciousness. You're gathering all of those vibrations, because when you are a large energetic being, you become the dominant tuning fork that steadies, and it basically overrides. If you think about, go back to the geometry. Someone who's at this level of consciousness, their toroidal field is this small, this narrow. Someone who is way up here, their toroidal field might go over here. So that's that. If you bring that down, let's say like their 11 gateway, they would be responsible for stabilizing that many people, and it's going to carry their vibrational signature. There's a safety mechanism here. It's to prevent. So basically, you're going to be the dominant tuning fork. Your vibrational calmness, your vibrational weight. Basically, you're the parent in the room. So if I'm directing my own energetic stream, another analogy would be if I'm like a gigantic fire hose. All of the energy that comes through me, you know that it goes where I pay attention. You know that energy Energy goes where attention, or energy flows where attention goes. So if there are two systems and one is broken or one is down and it's in the third dimension, and if I were to look at the direct my attention and my focus toward a third dimensional system right now, because my energy is so generative, everybody that I influenced would go down in dimension also. Basically, they're going to do what I do. I don't mean that in a manipulative way. I'm actually trying, believe it or not, I'm trying to get their power back to them. But you can't put it into the base of the triangle. Why? Because it's going to get more condensed and it's going to be its own trap. The thing that I have to do is pick up, and this was the whole point of the Joan of Arc template, is to go down as a savior figure, get as bright as possible so that everybody would look at the individual that was Joan of Arc, so that the attention would begin to flow toward me, and I could bring it up where there was an energetic construct above my head that would contain everybody's energy like a holding tank. Because we were trying, like, if you have someplace that's that dense, where the fuck are you going to put it? You're trying to get an entire planet to be more spacious, but they don't want to let go of anything. But they do idolize things. You're trying to find the path of least resistance. There's actually a way that we're trying to get the planet up, and I guarantee you, we don't want to hold it. We don't want your power. We're trying to get it, well, the light side, no, we're trying to get it back to you. But there is a process by which it has to happen, and we would appreciate some help. We'd appreciate some financial support, because you're starving us too. And it's kind of like we pick up all of the, pick up the energy of, like we're driving the car and we are the car. In a lot of ways, we are the car that's stabilizing the populace. But they don't want to put gas in the car because they don't realize we're doing anything because we're above their heads. It becomes its own problem. Because if I'm starving, or my vibration is going down, 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 because it's getting weaker and weaker when it should be getting stronger. But I can no longer afford, the high level supplements or whatever that, whatever. I don't really want to go into complaining, and there's a lot of abundance too. But we're having kind of a transactional it's a point where it's stuck, and it's very difficult to get certain things to budge any further. Will it happen? Yes, it has to. So here's the thing. There's a collision point that's going to happen, and it's going to knock because things have taken so long, because there's been such a reticence by certain parties, and also institutional, it's a Mobius strip, and it's this Mongolian clusterfuck, and it has been so incestuous and locked in, Gordian knot. Certain things have to come in to knock the crap out of it. It just does. They're not going to give you certain things because they don't want you to have it. So and please don't blame me for it. Because frequently, it's surprising how often people do tend to blame the messenger. Like, I'm really just here trying to tell you what's coming, because I've been up there. I'm watching this thing come down. It's programmed in the timelines. It's also in space. It's happening. There's no question about it. It hasn't hit the lower dimensions yet, or it hasn't hit the certain strata of the lower mindset yet. Haven't experienced certain things. That doesn't mean they're not going to. It is absolutely coming, and the only thing I'm trying to do is help. Yeah. If you don't let go, you're going to get dragged, or it's going to get dragged from you. You need it to be, not you. If you're listening to this, there's a very good chance that you're already doing it, or well on your way into fluidity. My point being, the fluidity is your friend. So please don't try to stabilize yourself. The last thing you want to do is think that you're going mental, that you're going crazy, and go to a psychopharmacologist to get to have your mental illness treated. Don't do that. It's going to fuck up your endocrine system. The first thing that that type of drug does, the whole system of drugs, it will screw up your energy body immediately at the precise time when you need to be clearing more. You need it to be moving more and more and more. Don't shut it down. You can die that way. A lot of things people call psychosis are not psychosis. You just suddenly saw into a new dimension for the first time. You're waking up. This is progress. What you need is someone to hold your hand who can just guide you through it and say, you're fine. You're fine. You're right here. I'm right here with you. This is what we're doing. I'm going to walk you right through it. You need major stabilizing figures who can just help you process it, keep it running, who know what the visions look like, who can just keep it stable, who can, like I have said before, I'm a mass transmuter. I will transmute energy for huge, huge, huge numbers of people. And I see visions all the time. They don't frighten me at all. I'm happy to see them. So I can radiate stability and calmness and no worries. We got it. It's fine. Let's go this way. I promise you, you're going to like it when we're there. You're only scared because you think something's wrong. Something's not wrong. You're fine. Where was I going with this? Oh, I started to say, have your plan for service ready. So one of the things that's coming up for a lot of you who are listening to this, even many of us who have had very straightforward, oh God, I want to talk about walk-ins too. There are going to be a lot of deaths and a lot of walk-ins. Please don't freak out about that. There are going to be a lot of deaths because a lot of turnover. There's going to be a tremendous amount of turnover. Why? Because a lot of souls who are in the third dimensional bodies who are having a hard time making the adjustment where they can't cope. They can't cope. The path for least resistance, the path of least resistance for a lot of people is going to be just to exit. But because we're in a time of such great assistance, there's an enormous number of souls who want those bodies. So there's a lot of changeover. So a lot of times if you're, number one, there are going to be a lot of people leaving their bodies. However, there's also going to be a tremendous number of walk-ins. One of the things that I was told personally, and I'm not the only one who got this message at all. That's why it helps. I have to talk to all these people, triangulate data, and if I know what strata they're primarily located on, I'm like, what did you hear? What do you hear? What do you see from there? What do you see from there? And, you know, I'm always going to these different strata and talking with various people about, because I know what their job is. So what's happening with your job? And that's the same information I got then for we're on the same page. Okay. Lot of information is being passed. So one of the things that's happening, I'm asking you to be as open-minded as possible, please, and non-reactive. Like, try not to jump to a judgment like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. And many souls are departing because it's easiest for them. We're trying to do this entire population upgrade to get all the people. Think about it this way. We're trying to get all of the people up with the fewest casualties possible. So if the soul of you, let's just say you've got a loved one and you like them and you want them to stay the way it's your, you know them, and all of a sudden their personality changes in a very short time. I'm not saying everybody, because sometimes personalities change in a very short time, because it might be the same soul, but it also might be a walk-in, because we need this to happen. If there's something that, there's a lot of assistance that wants to come in, and we can't just have everybody dying who's having a hard time. We can't have that. We need as many bodies as possible to actually be on the earth to do the work, to actually contribute and do the upgrade. We need that. We don't want to have mass slaughter and bodies dropping all over the place. So what we're having is a lot of souls who are saying, that's it, I'm out, this is too hard, I want to leave. And then those souls will typically take off, and there's going to be an exchange, and another soul who's fresh and eager and, give me some work, I want to get to work. They want to go into an adult body, or they don't want to have to wait for a pregnancy, for a birth, for them to get into to a child, to grow up, to get the work started. It's easier, more expedient, and more helpful if they will find some soul that wants to leave and say, hey, can I take that place? Do you mind if I have your seat? And there will be an agreement, and there will be a switch. And it may shock the crap out of the families of a lot of these people. Like, you were normal yesterday, what the hell happened to you? You're not. And so that's why you have to allow for a lot of things like divorces, because a lot of people are going to be having these shifts. And if you are rigidly adhered to no, marriage is for a lifetime, so help me God, you're not getting out of this marriage. Don't clog up the legal, just let them go. Everyone's going to be taken care of, but you have to really go with the flow. Is more than a bumper sticker. It's something that you need to do for your survival, for real. The more you can think of everything on an energetic platform that is like breathing. So you don't have to hold on to an oxygen tank just in case someday for your future security, because you might be running someday, and what if you run out of oxygen? Yes, there are some people who carry oxygen tanks around with them, but that's not exactly the picture of health, is it? What we want is an experience, and therefore a creation. Because as you go up in vibrational frequency, you get greater and greater creative ability. You have none when you're in 3, not really. You only begin to get creative ability when, and that's why it requires an entirely different skill set. And you have to really know how to manage your words and how to manage your thoughts. And that's another reason why the rotation, the ability to go up and down, and in this constant Rolodex that so many of us are experiencing, we need to do that. Because in order, for example, I was thinking about this today, in order for my information to get out, I have to be talking about certain things that are currently being experienced as problems. In order to do that, I can't do that from, I can't go up to like the 9th dimension and be delivering information, because I can't go up to a let me rephrase that, because I'm thinking about, there are ways to do everything. You need to be very cautious. You would have to root it a certain way, put it that way. You would have to root it a certain way. You can be in this world, but not of it. But you have to meet your population where they are. That's one strong rule. If you're going to talk about problems, you have to go to where the problems are, to talk about them on that level where the creative ability is not. Because I don't want to be verbalizing problems. I want to be talking about it, but I don't want to be verbalizing it from a space that is also creative. That would be stupid. So one of the reasons we need the rotation to go up and down so quickly, don't try to pin us down on something. It's one of the reasons why, like when I'm talking, everything is so contradictory. But it really does need that kind of flexibility. There is going to be a point, at some point, we're going to wind up, when everyone's stabilized, we're going to stabilize in 5, and it's going to be a lot more, stable. But it's not stable right now, and it can't be stable right now because these two sections are just not cooperative right now. And they really can't be. There's a way to do it, but merging them is difficult. And the 4th dimension in the middle is a place that it's very tumultuous, and light and dark exist. It's very contradictory. And semi-solid. So that's another thing, going from a place of solidity in the 3rd dimension where everything is firm and pinpointed and it's black or white and I want an answer. Yeah, I got an answer, it's linear. But as you go up, it becomes much more like jello and semi-solid. And people who only like the constriction, you know, babies need cribs. Babies like to be swaddled. Spiritual babies, I don't mean that as an insult. I really don't. A lack of spiritual maturity requires a realm where you don't do yourself that much damage. It's very confined because that's all they can cope with. And they think in the 3rd dimension on Earth, they think they're the only ones in the universe, and life doesn't exist on other planets, etc. That is actually not, we know it's not true, but it has permeated mass consciousness enough now so that you're finally beginning to see the effects in the populace where it's no longer automatically rejected. Because that's really the belief barrier is, I've said it before, it's true. The belief barrier is really what we're trying to get. That's the hardest thing to conquer. I think I say this every single time. I'm gonna have to do another live stream tomorrow. Oh my God, there's so much material. And so far on this list, I've got this entire pad. I've gotten that, have your plan for service ready, and also have it infinitely adjustable. There's about to be a U-turn where a lot of people, particularly on this strata, if you're listening, don't be surprised if this happens, because it's going to happen for a number of different strata. If this is the lowest level, there are like 3 or 4 different levels about up here. 3 or 4 different layers of like the baklava, who are very likely to have a sudden hairpin turn of mission. That's just where it's happening. It's not necessarily personal to you, but please be open to it. There's going to be a sharp rerouting of people on this strata, because we need to, it's like there was the wrong train track. A lot of people have been going in one direction, which was really wasn't, it was okay, but they really need to be, it needs to be changed. So something's coming in that in order to get someone else through, we need to reroute this like 3 or 4 layers in the middle. So there's going to be a rotation, and please be open to thoughts that come in where like, I have been doing this and I was really committed to doing this, and I've been thinking that all along I was going to do this one project, and that was my mission. I know what my mission is, and I was on a, I don't want to get sidetracked. I don't want to go off my project. I'm not saying you won't go back to it, but we may need you to be open to an adjustment, to be reassigned to something very quickly, or a series of reassignments, please be open to a hairpin, because there's a hairpin turn. I'm thinking of several people that I know that need to be in a different place right now. Like, and it's happening in like clusters. Like you might have a single mission when you're a single person, and then a family might have its own mission. And then as you go up, you might go up into small groups it's a little bit like twin flames who have twin flame missions. But then when you go up strata, you have groups that are kind of like associated by tasks, like grid workers are all working on the grid. There's in this strata, there are about 3 or 4 levels where there's like this thing that needs to rotate because we need certain things. We're trying to get a certain movement to happen. And there are certain places that are locked. So we're asking for, just be open to an adjustment. There's an entire level that needs to shift, which means everybody on that level is going to have a different position. And I don't want to really go into it, but it's kind of like you're going to wind up taking a very different job very quickly. And you please be as committed, just go with it. That doesn't mean that you're actually going to wind up accomplishing your soul's purpose. Because if your soul knows its purpose, it knows its purpose. I'm not telling you to go against your soul's purpose. What I'm saying is that there may be a different route that you may wind up, like if your purpose is education, for example, and you thought all along that you were going to go. So I'm using myself as an example. And all along, I started out by trying to get this school for 5 years, that particular school, and I was really committed to getting that school. I'm still in education, but I still may have a venue that's a school. In fact, there's one in the timeline now that's coming for me, but I can't go directly there. The steps are different. I have to take a different route. And I'm not the only one. In order for everybody to do that, we're just rerouting everybody else. So please you can stay on your own personal mission, but it's kind of like we're just asking you don't be surprised if you get guidance to suddenly go and do the exact thing that you wanted to do, but you have to go do it with that person, and it's just going to take you a different way. Please be open to that, because the entire strata needs to shift, and we can't shift a whole strata if certain people are too rigid and holding on to the way they think it has to be. It makes it so much more difficult. We really need people to be as fluid as possible. Stay on the Rolodex, just go with it. What else? How am I doing on time? 6:59. Embrace the vacuum, embrace the space. Space is your partner in flow. Why do we make offerings? I'm going to go back to that at a different time. Insurance, 11 gateway, no subservience. Oh, I was going to talk a little bit about this. Oh no, I'm going to finish this point because I started to talk about the voting system. The reason the voting system is dead, I know. The voting system is so screwed up right now that it's actually not working. If a high vibrational being who's influencing a lot of people tries to fix, even if they're well-intentioned, they want to fix the existing system. If you put your focus, all of the energy with your energetic imprint, this is why voting doesn't matter. All of the energy that comes through you is going to carry your vibrational imprint. That basically, you already voted. So voting energetically is a much stronger way to actually impact the result than giving your power to an external circumstance or an external system that we know already. Not only can it be manipulated, but it constantly is. And if you, even well-intentioned, put your energy, if you look into if I take my energy and I say, well, I'm going to fix the existing voting system, this is why I'm not going to vote. It would be taking my energy that is essentially my endorsement and putting it into the third dimension. So what that's going to do, it's going to cause everyone else that I influence is going, they're going to be drawn down, and the system as is actually going to get stronger and more fortified. It's going to get more solid. Why? Because I'm taking my energy and bringing it into form, and it's becoming more solid. We don't want that. We need it to be much more fluid. We're trying to get everyone out of solidity, not further into density. That doesn't mean that democracy is going away, but that means that for the time being, until we can get everybody up into their own actual power, responsibly carrying and responsible for their own energetic field so where they know what's going on. Do not let the babies drive. That said, there's just an energetic protocol. Protocol is the wrong word. There's a safety mechanism in place. The best way for you to influence the political system of the United States is to, or the world, anywhere, take your attention immediately off any perceived problem, especially, actually, hang on a minute. See, I can't even say that. You need to be able to see the problem for what it is, but not be emotional about it, because creation is only going to come through your heart space. And it's essential that, and this is one of the reasons why creation only really happens, viable creation only happens from a space of love. So in order to actually be in a creative space, you have to be in a very, very broad love space. You have to have your vibration be high enough and be in love to suddenly be a creative force that will actually affect something and birth a new reality from a place of actual love. And it has to be real. If you engage in the artificial version of that, so many problems with that. That's actually a whole other live stream. So if I change the analogy of the toroidal field, it's not an analogy, it's a real thing, but let's say I'm going to use the analogy of a fire hose so all of my energy is going to come through me, and I'm going to direct it. So depending on what I look at, a fire hose of water is or like a cosmic water pick. In my case, I say this all the time. I'm like a cosmic water pick. I'll clean out all the density by looking at it. I love that darkness away. There's a lot of propulsion going in a certain direction. So if the third dimension, I started to say this before, if there's a scale and you've got the third dimension over here, and let's say it's a wading pool or it's an ocean, and you've got the fifth dimension over here, what you need to do at this time, is channel all as much as possible, because creation is going to go by percentages. If it's possible for you to get completely away from the third dimension, channel all of your focus, all of your energy, 100% into the fifth dimensional construct, and be really scrupulous about it, like Jen McCarty's doing this, then you're going to be one of the people that's helping to anchor that. Most people are sending mixed messages to one degree or another. But if you think about your own direction, where you're going, it happens by percentages. So in order to get any progress, personal progress toward the fifth dimension, at least 51% of your energy is going to have to be going in that direction. and then you would only be crawling up by 1% progress. Think about it that way when you choose what to put your focus on, where to direct your energy. Because if you're, granted, yes, I understand that some of us, particularly with the financial system, it has been especially tricky to get out of. But that's why so many of us are in a position and should be in a position of relying on other people who are still there. Because that way because it's also important to stay in authenticity. We're trying to move into a realm where there is no deception. In order to do that, we have to be as authentically ourselves as possible. It's a dicey kind of migration. It's extremely complicated. There are a lot of things a lot of adjustments that have to happen at the same time. So we're trying to get into our own authenticity. So what we're trying to do is allow the person in, as much as we want them to and we all do need to climb up. We don't want to force them to do it. We want to get them to do it by agreeing to do it through a space of love. So if your family members are still working, or they have a retirement account or something where it's a three-dimensional traditional construct, allow them to support you, and please don't add shame into the soup. So one of the things that's happening in the toroidal field, all of our vibrations, all of our energy fields are mixing, and it becomes like a great big soup. When somebody gives you something and you feel embarrassment or shame, or shame's a big one, guilt, immediately what happens, particularly if you're already high vibrational, is you're already connected into a network with everybody else who has the same tendencies. They immediately pick up on everything that you thought. Please do not feel guilty about receiving. It's going to screw up. It's screwing it up for the rest of us. It tanks it. We need to be as guiltless as possible. Guilt-free, shame-free. Yeah, we need to be that. We need to be more of that. The divine feminine having a hard enough time with the whole receiving image, receiving ideas, and receiving the whole idea of the, from the church that there's supposed to be chastity, and you're supposed to not receive anything. It's better to give than to receive. There's a whole ton of hidden misogyny. We're really trying to get rid of that. So please be open to receiving, not only money, but open to receiving altogether. Remember the geometry. The people who have difficulty opening their minds to God and opening to the idea of upliftment, opening to their own intuition, they need to open the top side, because usually they're in the part of the Star of David. Usually people like that are in the base triangle that's pointed up. They're in the blade, more of the masculine, where they think you have to keep doing. And their base, the large portion of that triangle, that geometrical structure is earth-based. So they want to hold on to it. Usually they're physically oriented and they have a difficult time going up, but that's their challenge. If you want to bring something through the 11 gateway, their challenge is to open and release. Our challenge, if we're in the divine feminine coming down, our challenge is to broaden the base and be open to receiving earth. Because so many, the material, because so many of us say no to sex, and we have to say no to money. No, you take it. And it's just something that needs to be, it's just a harmonic. We need to really balance that. So please, that's the whole 11 gateway. And you can't go through it unless you have mastered that. So ain't that always the rub. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I just checked the time. The equivalent of diversity in a financial portfolio. Like, I don't know, dick about finances. It's a ridiculous thing for me to even talk about. However, they say don't put all of your eggs in one basket, or don't, you're supposed to have a diverse portfolio. The equivalent of that, of diversity in a financial portfolio is a diverse ecosystem. Diversity altogether is the way to prosperity. So this is why the rainbow warriors are coming, and we need all of the we need the plants, the animals, the kingdoms, and the elementals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all the ET species. And that's true of the educational system. And I know I'm going to be talking a lot more about that, about things that David Mills, if you're still on, you are. I'd like to talk to you sometime more about that, because I think you're a genius. We're going into an era where communication with other species is going to be quite commonplace. It's going to be absolutely laughable, embarrassing, seen as so incredibly primitive that once on Earth they thought they were the only ones. They were the only life in the galaxy, the only life in the universe. That's so absurd. Scientists have discovered that animals are sentient. Plants are sentient. Really? God. Scientists are the last ones to know. Transmuting darkness is a process of transmuting ourselves, changing ourselves. Yes, it's less about transmuting the darkness, although it's a part of the process, but we are the way that the darkness is transmuted, because it changes us. Oh God, that's a great story. I really do want to talk about that. I'm going to leave that for another time because it's going to take longer than I have. But that's damn good. I really want to mention that. Caron Isis. So I had a session with someone. Great session. I have really enjoyed her company. Really a lot. Like I know, I probably say this about almost everybody. But it's true. I had this really great session with her, and I've spoken to her a couple of times since then. I really, really like her. There's an artist living in Thailand. Her name's Caron Isis. She booked a session, and it's really got me thinking. And then I've talked to her. What I like about her is that, like, sometimes I ask people to update me because I'm interested in what's, like, we'll talk about something, and I'm like, let me know how that works out. And I genuinely am really interested. Like, what are you doing with that? And sometimes I'll touch base. A lot of time, I just make a lot of friends. I make a lot of friends. I'm like, I need a really, really, really big house, and I need a huge Thanksgiving table. Because I know I do say this all the time, but I mean it. Like, I'm not joking at all. I mean it with, like, every last one of them. I just think that they're so fantastic when I talk to them. Like, I really don't want this session to end because you're just so damn cool. So Caron Isis lives in this great house in Thailand, and it's half open. It's all studio, and it's half open and half shut. And so you know how all of my sessions work sequentially, and she had a session with me at a time where it was like at that juncture where it's like half closed and half open. And it was interesting to me that she was an artist because the person before her was also an artist. So we were talking about stepping into the realm of creation from a place of solidity. So her house was literally half open. It's got like 3 walls. And some fantastic things about her. One thing, so cool. Like so many of us, she's got very little money. She's making her artwork. Damn, I should post. I am going to post a picture. She sent me a picture of it. I said, when you finish that thing, please send me a picture. And she did. She's making her artwork from or not all of it, but at least it's then one thing she was working on. She was like salvaged t-shirts, because there's a lot of them. She's in a touristy area of Thailand, so there's a lot of apparently like discarded clothing, and she's got all of this t-shirt material, and she made a cape. She made this glorious patchwork cape. Reminds me a little bit of like Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. She patchworked this thing together, and there were a lot of interesting things about that session. One being it's about reclamation. She's not using the new material, right? We're not talking about making something from, it's just a different kind of creation. And we're talking about taking the earth. I'm always looking at what it relates to, because we're very much in a process of that with the earth right now, taking it up all together, where it's not like we're going to inherit a new planet. We're not using new materials. We have new materials to work with, but we're taking the old one and we're transmuting it into a new form. And her house, because you know how like everything that happens in my sessions, I'm finicky about what's going on in the background. Like I never want the cutlery to be there, because I don't want the vibration of the cutlery to go out on the transmission. And I watch the background of every person I have a session with. I pay attention to like when their children come in and what's happening in the array. It's important and it's meaningful. And so it's fascinating. In her house, it's missing like a wall or two, and it's open to the outside, and there's either like a rice paddy or thing, but it's open. And she's got like 6 dogs running around and a flock of ducks. And what I loved about it, God, this thing was just sexy as hell. If you look at the transmutation process, like I was so happy. You would think that this wouldn't be a good thing, but she told me this. I was like, that is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. She's sharing the space with a cobra. I shit you not. She's sharing her underneath her like her step area is a cobra who lives there, and she's coexisting with a cobra. How's that for mastery? I love it. I absolutely love it. And one other, and she's God, she's so cool. Yeah. And then she's taking all of these scraps, and she made this Technicolor cape. And she sent me a picture, and I'm going to post it on my wall. You should go find it. She said, I'll send you a picture when it's done. And then she did. And so I wanted to mention that for a couple of reasons. Also, she told me that she was the flock of her ducks. I said, what breed of ducks are they? You know why? Because every force evolves a form, and ducks are ducks, but the breed of duck matters. And she said they were Indian runner ducks, which is a breed that I'm familiar with. And that tells me something. There's a reason I asked. They're extremely upright. Indian runner ducks are extremely tall, very, very lanky ducks. They're very tall and thin, very much like an 11. And I'm not just grasping for straws, but the interesting thing, though, is that like a night or two after our session, 2 of her ducks vanished, thin air, vanished. And you'd think, well, they first of all, ducks really don't run off. And I did wind up looking up, I was just interested, I wound up looking up predators, and but I was also thinking about timeline jumps, because I kid you not, that's actually happening quite a bit. And just the mere fact that 2 Indian runner ducks disappeared like a night after that particular session, it has meaning. Everything has meaning. It tells you about what's happening with the collective. There are 11 gateways, and pay attention to every place you see in 11, not just 1111, but just really pay attention to that. It's like the 3-to-1 ratio. There's a way to get out. Every time you see an 11, that's going to tell you that there's a way to get up. Something can go through that to get to the next level right at that time. It's important. Oh, also, we're in this period of time I haven't even begun to talk about 722. I haven't even begun to talk about Lionsgate. Ooh, I'm going to have to do another live stream tomorrow. I say this all the time. So she's coexisting with a cobra. And there are all sorts of, that entire session is about transitional spaces. All of it. The other thing I wanted to mention about artwork in particular and personal expression, I wanted to put this out in the field so that people know. I just want people to know. In the future, and this does have to do with the financial model too. You know how, of course you do, those who were less valued in the traditional system on Earth were the artists, or the the artists, the musicians, the creative people, the ones who couldn't afford anything, the doctors, the lawyers, the whatever, were valued because they were predictable and had, college degrees and made money, etc. I will tell you that in the future, from Earth, particularly our planet, the things that are most prized through the entire universe, it's artwork that came from Earth. If you are an artist and you are, don't hesitate to go into a creative space. Your work is going to be so valued. It's very much like something like the Renaissance, or something where very much like the Renaissance. Work from this time is particularly valued. It's particularly sought after, highly, 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 highly sought after by alien races who want things, who want relics that came from this time of particularly the transition. We are superstars in the galaxy primarily because of our diversity, the hardships that our algebra. A lot of it has to do with our array of our hybridization. The fact that we are so multifaceted, we don't even know that yet. Like, that's the funky thing. We don't know that yet, but we're such hybrids. In many other planetary systems, it's like one thing or another. The Arcturians live there. The Andromedans live there. They look like this. They have a way of looking. Humans, humanoids, we're such hybrids in terms of our genetics that which we create is so highly prized and very, very much sought after. So I just want to leave that with you, because I thought of that when I saw her cape that she made from discarded t-shirts, because there's also a vibrational quality that comes from reclamation and pulling something off at the last possible second that everyone had deemed a lost cause, which is Earth. Everyone deemed a lost cause. And that's what it's like. Everyone's watching to see if you could possibly pull this thing out of the gutter. So when we do it, everything that came through this period is a particular treasure. Seriously. So go make some stuff. That's why we need to bring art. So one of the many, 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 many reasons why art has to be our art, innovation, creation, harmonics. I'm going to do a whole live stream on that because I really do have a shit ton to say about that. Yes, because of our ingenuity and our ability to invent things, create things, less about creation and more about resourcefulness, problem solving. You may not know this, but you wouldn't think so either from the looks of our planet, but humans are viewed as being incredibly resourceful problem solvers, and particularly inventive. Like with the crap that we've had to work with, we've done pretty well for the situation we found ourselves in. And largely that has come from a certain level of hardship that was inflicted on us when we were as a prison planet. You learn to do certain things under hardship, under pressure. So there's that. Please remember to cancel your any negative effects prior to speaking, if you must be speaking. Let's see, the geometry of rescue. Oh, I did talk about that. Okay, good. Yeah, let's see. Constant shifting. Hang on. Yeah, so you go down in dimension to assist. And you go, assist and purge happens in the lower dimension. Then you go up to create. Up in dimension to create. Constant shifting. Vacate now all 3D systems. Oh yeah, characteristics of 3D. In the third dimension, they tend to tally everything. You know how certain stages of development have certain characteristics? Caron says, I was just talking about you. You're here. I was just talking about you. She's the one who made a cape. She lives with a cobra. She's so cool. They tally everything in the third dimension. You know how children, when they have very particular stages of development, and it's, you know, if you've got a short child throwing a tantrum, they're likely within this age or this age. It's like you're with the terrible 2s or the terrible 3s or the, you know, frightful 4s or whatever. I was a preschool teacher. I don't mind tantrums, not one bit. I actually think you're adorable, but there are certain, and then when you freak out about your appearance and you get all awkward, oh, that can go such a long stage. But you see certain behavior just goes along with certain, you know, like you're an adolescent when you do X, Y, Z. Characteristics of third dimensional, those in the third dimension. There's a ton of tallying, documenting who did what, who owes what. They measure everything and tally everything. The whole idea of thank you, it's bizarre. Those in the third dimension have this weird, and not only the third dimension, it kind of happens in 4 too, where like, yes, you want to stay in a place of gratitude, sure. But the whole idea that if you give something to someone, they have to say thank you, otherwise you feel you have a reaction about it. Sometimes if somebody is really freaking out about the fact that you didn't say thank you, that kind of tells you something about what strata they're in. It's an identifying feature, because in the higher dimensions, we live in a place of breathing where the exchange is just like breathing, and you don't have to constantly remember to say thank you every time you inhale. No, you know, identify where that oxygen has been before, and make sure you say thank you to that person, because they didn't have to give you anything. It's just part of an even exchange. Get used to receiving. I'm not saying you shouldn't say thank you. If somebody absolutely, sure, you can say thank you. But and maintaining a state of gracious gratitude all the time. Sure, I would totally encourage that. But it doesn't need to be something that we go into to overthank someone for giving what should be. We need to step up into that place where, of course, you're going to receive and give, because you'd be an idiot not to. Kind of like thanking everybody so every time they thanking someone every time they exhale. Of course, you're going to exhale, because you can't only inhale. The same way you can't only receive. You can't. You have to exhale too. You have to give too. It's to their benefit too to give me something. So saying thank you, it's one of those things that it's a protocol that kind of exists in the lower dimensions. And then there's a state where like it's all thank you all the time, all thank you all the time. But then at some point you're just in service and it's normal. It's just normal. You just live in service because that's what you do. And you get as much pleasure from giving as receiving. And at some point that kind of verbal protocol, you don't need it anymore because you just know. 7:33. Last time I checked, it was 7:22. Now it's 7:33. I'm going to wind up doing another live stream tomorrow because I was going to talk about. Boy, I had an interesting experience this morning, and I had an experience where maybe I'll just talk about it now briefly before I go. I've got to go pick up my daughter. I had this weird experience this morning where sometimes you pick up on stuff that I'm not sure where it's coming from. And it's not always important to identify it, except, in fact, a lot of times it's not important. But I can usually, because it's me and I can usually tell where something's coming from. Sometimes you want to know where something's coming from. Like if you pick up on a smell and you're like, something ain't right. Where the hell is that smell coming from? And you go around the part and trying to sniff out, like, was it a dog? Did something die on the wall? Where did it come from? And I'm not saying this thing was bad. It wasn't. But because you get sensitive to certain ingredients in the field, sometimes something turns up and it's just like a presence. And I was just really aware of it this morning. And it was I was incredibly touched, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because there's a mystery about it that I can't figure it out, because it's a feeling that is, I'm receiving two things about it simultaneously that are opposite. But it is the single most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, and it has a space of such tremendous, profound intimacy about it. But I also can't figure out what it is. The two messages, the dual messages that I was picking up on really strongly this morning, to the point where I burst into tears. I was at my dresser. I was standing in the mirror. At the mirror. I was getting dressed. And I suddenly sensed this thing, and I was so incredibly moved. And then I really went into it, and I looked at it, but I couldn't figure out, because it seems like something that is simultaneously a deep, deep, deep secret that you're not supposed to talk about. But oddly enough, also, in that same space, there is something that says you must speak this on the live stream. It's important. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because I wanted to spend more. It really moved me to tears. Like I burst into tears. I was so profoundly moved. I can't figure out exactly. Maybe I'm not supposed to figure out what it is, but I definitely felt it, and it was really, really, really moving. I'll describe it as best I can. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it feels like something, like I don't know what this thing is. There's such incredibly deep emotion here. I feel like someone really needs to hear this. There's something like a being, an energy, like a being or an energy. It has a movement to it, like I can see it. And it seems as though, this is such a weird thing, I'm having a hard time reconciling these two things in my mind. Somehow it's in something that's cement. I don't know what that means. There's something with cement. There's something like, and specifically cement. And I really question that. I'm like, why isn't it? I would expect something to, what I would expect would be stone. And so I said, it feels like it's cement, but why? I would expect something like that to be stone. Like, for example, I thought it was like on the Council of Balance where I was. My twin and I were on the Council of Balance. And we have, on the Council of Balance, we are very, very high level beings, but when we went into the temple in the Council of Balance, we entered into statues. And they're behemoth sculptures. They're really massive architectonic, not the kind of sculpture like Mercury or Hermes or something where it's very active. Not at all. They're very block-like and architectonic. And the reason for that is you can go in there and it's a way of stabilizing our beings. Like, we can go and put ourselves into these sculptures. They're not sculpted, but they kind of are. They're basically sculptures, very architectonic sculptures. And you can go in there if you're a being, and it assists you to stabilize yourself, because in the Council of Balance, there was a lot of negotiating, and the risk, because of where you are and because of all the architecture of all the different geometries on the way down, if tempers ever flare, there's the risk of inadvertent, like, emotional flinching, a little. In order to maximize stability, you can go into these. Each one of us had our own sculpture, and it was and the sculptures were all harmonized themselves. So you can go in there and it maximizes the telepathy, it maximizes the cooperation, and everything is uniform, and you can have this you can converse from a position of stability and harmony while you work out the balancing of very high minutia of conflicting issues on the planet. Dark and light strategy. So we would go into these sculptures because it helps us remain stable. This morning at the mirror, there was something that was like that, but I was witness to something that looked like, it moved like a flame. It was transparent, though. That's the thing. And it seems like something was trying to hide in there. something's trying to hide there, but it was something like has been protected. There's the it had a feeling of something that was an indescribable treasure, just an almost like an unparalleled treasure, something that you, not even one being, but something that is so precious that is literally without price. It's a priceless treasure. And for some reason, there was something that was about it, that it was being protected by something that is cement. And I'm not even entirely, and it feels simultaneously like it's a secret, like really a secret, like somebody doesn't want this thing to be known. And it's a treasure, and you've got to protect this with your life. Like, it was so dear. There is so much concern over the well-being that this must be held. It must be held and cared for and treasured and protected. And for some reason, this thing is being held in something that is it feels like cement. I don't understand this. But there's a consciousness in the, looks like a transparent flame inside. And I went in. It's like my consciousness was suddenly there with it, and there was an interaction. And it was absolutely profound and beautiful and incredibly intimate in this space. But also there was a secrecy to it. And I cried on the spot. And I don't even know what I'm talking about. But there was like, there was a whole bunch of channeling that came in too. The word is wept. I wept. They want me to use the word wept. Like Jesus wept. Ooh. There is such profound emotion there. At the time this morning, it's probably around 10 o'clock, there was a whole channeling that came in, and words came in, and there was like specific words, and I didn't try to write it down because I was crying. And then by the time I got to the pad of paper, it had gone, but there was a whole bunch of specific terms too. Tremendous amount of concern there. Held, that was one of the words that came in, was held. That it's holding and protecting this treasure. There's something that's I don't understand. I don't understand why it was cement. It seemed very peculiar to me. But I did ask why. So at the time I said I would expect a being like that to live in stone. Why wouldn't it live in stone? Because consciousness, there are beings that go into things all the time. I was surprised to see that it was specifically cement of all things, or had a cement-like feel to it. And I said I would expect it to be stone. And I said, why not stone? And the answer actually came back because this being can communicate with stone, and it doesn't want the stone. Whoever put this, whatever the being is, it is such a secret. And for some reason, that's the thing. For some reason, they want me to say it on a live stream, and that's what I don't understand. It's simultaneously something that must be delivered verbally, vocally, transmission. I'm getting the word transmission. Transmitted to, somebody needs to hear it. But simultaneously, it is a kept secret, held, protected secret. And it's extremely important that this thing is protected, because that's why I said, why stone? And they said, because the stone has consciousness and it would know. So that's why I was very confused, because it has such a double thing going on. But somehow if it went into a stone, normally I would expect this thing to go in. For some reason, there's a resonance with shungite. I would expect so that the being that's in the cement or the space within the cement, something like that, I can feel it, man. It has an ability to communicate with everything. And there's an affinity, that's the word I was looking for. There is an affinity with very, very fine textured stones such as shungite. You know how shungite has that extremely fine texture? That's what I would, or even something like a Shiva lingam. I would kind of, there's something like that too, which even it's not as fine as shungite, but there's something about that too. A Shiva lingam or shungite has that texture, and there's something about it like that, you know, like an oblong, like a Shiva lingam. You know what that is. Anyway, there's a being in there, and then I went in there too, and I, not completely, but I visited with consciousness. I went in there too, I could go. But not everything can get in because it's being held and it's protected, and it's essential that it, somehow it's held secret, protected, held, carried. Let me see if there's anything else really quick before I go. Loved, carried, held, treasured. I'm getting the image of someone just wrapping holding the whole thing to their heart and weeping. Oh, W. It's a weep. The reason they're using the word wept, weeping, it's because it's W. Could be a twin flame. It does look like a transparent, something about transparency. There was a transparent flame in there. It looked like a transparent, and then it was rotating too. There was a rotation, and I could feel it, and it was absolutely profound. But this thing was so treasured that it must not be found. There's something about like it can't be left unprotected. It's essential. It's absolutely essential. Anyway, for some reason I had to deliver that message verbally, even though it's supposed to be a secret. I don't get it. And something with cement. And there's a being in it. I'm hearing the words more on this later. Okay, we'll get more. Okay, that's interesting. I think I'm gonna leave it on that. Plus, I have to go get my daughter. Okay, more on this later. For some reason, I just feel like doing that. There's an 11 gateway. Love you, love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. Okay, I do love you. Bye.